Hello friends, welcome back to new fascinating video on Ashwa Old Coins. The Liberty $quarter coin, a part of the United States currency system, has evolved through many different designs and series. It has played a vital role in the U.S. economy and has a long and varied history. The coins from 1977, 1889, and 1984 belong to different periods, each reflecting distinct aspects of American culture, politics, and minting techniques. The Liberty $quarter coin from 1984 is part of the United States' long history of minting $quarter coins. To understand its significance, we must explore its historical background, design features, and geographical context. Below is an in-depth exploration of the coin's history and geographical information. The Liberty $quarter coin itself belongs to a long tradition of U.S. coinage that has undergone multiple changes in design and composition since its introduction. The $quarter denomination, 25 cents, was first authorized by the Coinage Act of 1792, establishing it as a standard currency unit in the U.S. The early quarters feature designs inspired by the concept of liberty and national symbols. The coin you are referring to, the 1984 quarter, is part of the Washington Quarter series, which was initially introduced in 1932. This series was named after George Washington, the first president of the United States, and has been one of the most enduring designs in U.S. coinage history. In 1932, to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the U.S. Mint introduced a new design for the $quarter. The design depicted Washington's profile on the obverse front of the coin, with the word Liberty above the portrait, "In God We Trust" inscribed to the right, and the year of minting below. The reverse back of the coin initially featured an eagle perched on a branch, symbolizing strength and the United States sovereignty. The Washington quarter, which included the 1984 coin, went through some changes over the years, but the essential design remained consistent through the 20th century. In 1965, the composition of the quarter was altered due to the rising costs of silver. The original silver quarters were replaced by a clad composition, consisting of an outer layer of copper-nickel and an inner core of pure copper. The 1984 Washington quarter specifically has the same basic design as previous years within the Washington series. It features obverse front, a portrait of George Washington, facing left. Liberty is inscribed at the top, "In God We Trust," to the right of Washington's image, and the year 1984 at the bottom. Reverse back, a rendition of an eagle with its wings spread, holding an olive branch and arrows, representing peace and strength. The reverse design also includes the inscription "United States of America, e pluribus unum," meaning out of many one, and $quarter. The 1984 quarter was minted at multiple locations in the United States. The U.S. Mint has several facilities responsible for producing different denominations of coins. Philadelphia Mint, P. Coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint are marked with a P mint mark. The 1984 quarters minted here were produced in large quantities to meet the demand for circulating coins. Denver Mint, D. The Denver Mint also produced the 1984 $quarter marked with a D mint mark. The Denver Mint is one of the largest and most prominent mints in the country, primarily responsible for the production of coinage for general circulation. San Francisco Mint, S. While the San Francisco Mint primarily produces proof coinage, it is important to note that a small number of 1,984 quarters may have been minted as proof coins for collectors. These proof coins, produced with special care and high-quality strikes, are usually marked with an S mint mark. The 1984 quarter is not considered particularly rare or valuable in general circulation, as it was produced in significant numbers, with millions of coins minted across all U.S. mint facilities. However, for coin collectors, this coin represents a standard issue of the Washington Quarter series, which has maintained widespread recognition due to its iconic design of George Washington. Though not highly sought after in the numismatic world, the 1984 quarter could hold some value for collectors, especially if it is in uncirculated or proof condition. The coin's value would also be influenced by factors such as its mint mark and any potential errors or variations that occurred during its production. The Washington quarter continued to be produced with the same design until 1998. However, starting in 1999, the U.S. Mint began a major redesign initiative known as the 50-State Quarters Program, which featured unique designs for each state. This program ran from 1999 to 2008, significantly altering the appearance of the quarter during those years. Following the 50-State Quarters Program, the America the Beautiful Quarters Program began in 2010, highlighting national parks and other national landmarks. Despite these changes, the Washington Quarter remained an enduring symbol of U.S. coinage for over 60 years, and it continues to have a place in the heart of American coin collectors. Today, the 1984 Washington Quarter is a part of American coin history, representing a key moment in the continuity of the U.S. quarter's design. The coin is widely found in circulation, though it may not hold significant numismatic value unless in pristine or specialized condition. For collectors, it's a coin that evokes a sense of nostalgia, as it bridges the gap between the era of the Washington Quarter and the modern era of state-themed and national park-themed quarters. It's also a reminder of how U.S. coinage evolved and adapted to the changing needs and preferences of the American people, while remaining rooted in the ideals of liberty and national pride. The 1984 Liberty Quarter, as part of the Washington Quarter series, represents an important chapter in U.S. coinage. It reflects the enduring legacy of George Washington's image as a symbol of liberty, strength, and unity. Although the 1984 coin may not be particularly rare or valuable, it holds historical and geographical significance as a product of the U.S. Mint's long-standing tradition of producing high-quality currency. As part of the larger Washington Quarter series, it is a symbol of the continuity of American values and coinage design through the 20th century. The 1989 Liberty Quarter Dollar coin is part of the United States Mint's Washington Quarter series, which has been in circulation since 1932. This particular coin, like other quarters minted during this period, features a familiar design that has become iconic in U.S. coinage. To understand the 1989 Liberty Quarter Dollar's history and geographic context, we need to look at the history of the quarter dollar itself, the significance of the year 1989 in U.S. history, and the coin's design and minting process. The Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by artist John Flanagan, the obverse front of the coin features a portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, while the reverse depicts an eagle. This design became the hallmark of the Washington Quarter series, though it has been modified several times over the years. In 1999, the U.S. Mint introduced a new series of quarters called the 50-State Quarters Program, which involved issuing a unique quarter for each state. This program concluded in 2008. However, before that, the Washington Quarter continued to be issued for general circulation, and the coin minted in 1989 was part of that era. In terms of U.S. history, the year 1989 was a pivotal one. Here are some important historical and geographical events that helped shape the era. The presidency of George H.W. Bush. In 1989, George H.W. Bush was in the middle of his first term as the 41st President of the United States. He had just assumed office in January of that year after defeating Michael Dukakis in the 1988 presidential election. End of the Cold War. The year 1989 marked a significant shift in the global political landscape. The fall of the Berlin Wall in November 1989 symbolized the weakening of the Soviet Union's control over Eastern Europe and the approach of the end of the Cold War. The dissolution of the Soviet Union would come just 2 years later, in 1991. The Gulf War. Later in 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait, setting the stage for the Gulf War in 1991. While this event occurred after the release of the 1989 Liberty Quarter, it laid the groundwork for U.S. military involvement in the region during Bush's presidency. Cultural developments. In terms of U.S. culture, the late 1980s were characterized by the rise of technology, music, and the economy. The 1989 Liberty Quarter, with its consistent design, was minted at a time when the U.S. was transitioning into a more modern era with rapid technological advances. The 1989 quarter features the standard design of the Washington Quarter series, which has remained largely unchanged for much of its history. Here's a breakdown of its design elements. Obverse front side. The obverse of the quarter features a left-facing portrait of George Washington. Washington is depicted as a dignified figure with his hair styled in the fashion of the late 18th century. The inscription Liberty is featured above his head, and the date 1989 is placed below the portrait. The words, "In God We Trust," are inscribed to the left of Washington's portrait, and "United States of America" appears around the top edge of the coin. Reverse, back, side. The reverse of the 1989 quarter showcases the traditional eagle design. The eagle is depicted in a powerful, soaring position, with its wings spread wide. The inscription, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, is above the eagle, while the denomination's quarter dollar is inscribed below. The design on the reverse was initially created by sculptor John Flanagan, and it remains one of the most recognizable symbols of U.S. coinage. Mint mark. The mint mark on the 1989 Liberty quarter will indicate where it was produced. Quarters minted in 1989 came from one of three locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; or San Francisco, S, with the latter being issued for proof coins only. The mint mark is located on the obverse side of the coin, near the bottom right. The 1989 Liberty quarter was produced in large numbers for circulation, as well as in proof and uncirculated versions for collectors. The U.S. Mint, responsible for producing the nation's coinage, released these quarters as part of the ongoing series of Washington quarters that had been in circulation since 1932. Mintage and distribution. The U.S. Mint produced more than 600 million Washington quarters in 1989. These coins were distributed across the country through various banks and financial institutions. The minting took place at two primary locations, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The Philadelphia Mint produced the standard coins, while the Denver Mint handled additional production for coinage reserves. Collectability and value. Though the 1989 quarter was minted in large quantities, it is still of interest to coin collectors. In terms of collectability, the 1989 quarter is not considered rare. However, special versions of the coin, such as proof versions, may hold more value due to their higher quality and limited production. Composition. The 1989 Liberty quarter, like all quarters minted after 1965, is composed of a clad mixture of copper and nickel. Specifically, the coin is made up of 91.67% copper, with the remaining 8.33% being nickel. It weighs 5.67 grams and has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. In 1989, the U.S. economy was in a relatively strong position. After a period of economic expansion in the 1980s, the country was experiencing low inflation and steady growth. The stock market was doing well, and the unemployment rate was moderate, though concerns over the federal budget deficit persisted. The success of the American economy during this period helped to bolster public confidence in the currency, which continued to be trusted by citizens, businesses, and investors alike. The 1989 quarter, like all U.S. coinage, was distributed throughout the United States. At the time, the coin was being used by millions of Americans for everyday transactions, from purchasing goods to paying for services. The geographic distribution of these coins was widespread across all 50 states, as well as U.S. territories and foreign military bases. However, the coin was not just important in its domestic usage. It played a role in international commerce, as the U.S. dollar and its associated coins are widely used in foreign trade and for exchange. The 1989 quarter represents a transitional period in U.S. coinage, as it was part of the traditional Washington quarter series that would remain in place until 1999. Starting in that year, the U.S. Mint embarked on the 50-state quarters program, a revolutionary coin design initiative that introduced a new quarter for each state. Despite this change, the design of the Washington quarter remained beloved by many Americans, and it continued to be used in special commemorative coins even after the 50-state quarters program concluded. The 1989 Liberty quarter dollar is a coin that holds both historical and geographical significance within the broader context of U.S. currency. It represents an enduring design that was a staple of U.S. coinage throughout much of the 20th century. As an artifact, the 1989 quarter reflects the socio-political climate of the late 1980s, while also capturing the continuity and stability of American money. Whether you're interested in its design, its place in history, or its value to collectors, the 1989 Liberty Quarter is a coin with a rich story to tell. The 1977 Liberty $quarter coin is part of the United States Quarter Series and, specifically, is from the time when the U.S. Mint was using the Washington quarter design. While the 1977 quarter holds no particular distinction in terms of its design compared to other years, it can be placed within the broader context of both the history of U.S. coinage and the geography of the United States. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The design was chosen following a competition, with the winning design created by John Flanagan, an engraver at the U.S. Mint. The 1932 design, the original Washington quarter, features a left-facing profile of George Washington on the obverse front side of the coin, with the words "Liberty, In God We Trust," and the year of minting. On the reverse back side, the coin features a bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing both war and peace, which were central to the nation's ideals at the time. While the general design of the Washington quarter remained relatively unchanged, some minor updates occurred over time. The reverse design saw a change in 1976 to celebrate the U.S. bicentennial, with a new reverse that featured the image of a colonial drummer. However, after 1976, the original design returned. Thus, the 1977 quarter carries the familiar Washington obverse and eagle reverse. Minting and circulation. The 1977 quarter was minted in large quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, as well as at the San Francisco Mint for proof sets. This coin was widely circulated during its time and was part of the ongoing U.S. currency used for general transactions. The quarter also played a role in the economic landscape of the late 1970s, when inflation was rising and the U.S. economy was facing significant challenges. Coin specifications. The 1977 quarter, like all Washington quarters produced from 1965 onward, is composed of a cupronickel clad metal, which consists of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. It weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge. Collectability and value. The 1977 quarter in circulated condition is worth its face value of 25 cents. However, in uncirculated condition or as part of a proof set, it may be worth more to collectors. The U.S. Mint regularly produces millions of quarters each year, so unless there is an error or unique feature, coins from the 1970s are generally not considered rare or highly valuable. However, a high-quality, uncirculated version of the 1977 quarter might hold more value to numismatists, particularly those collecting specific years or mint marks. Historical context. The 1970s were a decade marked by significant economic change. The U.S. faced major challenges such as the oil crisis, inflation, and the aftermath of the Vietnam War. In 1977, President Jimmy Carter took office, and his administration focused on addressing the nation's energy and economic problems. This context reflects the broader history in which the 1977 quarter circulated. Mint marks and production numbers. The 1977 quarter was struck in large numbers, and collectors often focus on identifying different mint marks for coins of this era. The mint marks used for the 1977 quarter are Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, the majority of quarters were struck here. Denver Mint, D mint mark, another significant portion of the quarters were minted in Denver. San Francisco Mint, S mint mark, these quarters were struck for proof sets and are usually in higher quality. The geography of the United States during the 1970s was largely shaped by its political, economic, and social climate. 1. Political landscape. By 1977, the United States was still recovering from the turbulent 1960s and early 1970s, which were marked by civil rights movements, the Vietnam War, and social unrest. The country was undergoing significant changes, with the 1970s being a time of realignment, as the U.S. sought to find its identity in a post-Vietnam, post-Watergate world. Economic challenges. The U.S. economy in 1977 was grappling with high inflation rates, known as stagflation, which led to increasing costs for goods and services. The oil embargo of the early 1970s had caused a major energy crisis, with rising gas prices and fuel shortages. This economic strain was felt across all regions of the country. Geographic changes. Though no significant territorial changes occurred in 1977, the American population continued to grow and shift. The Sun Belt, southern and southwestern regions, was experiencing significant population growth as people moved away from the industrialized northern regions in search of warmer climates and new economic opportunities. The design of the Washington Quarter was used nationwide, with coins from different mints distributed to different parts of the country. The geographical spread of the minting facilities, such as the Denver Mint and the Philadelphia Mint, played a part in the geographic spread of the coins as well. Coins from the San Francisco Mint were generally reserved for collectors and proof sets, which could be purchased across the nation. Numismatics. Geographically, coin collectors across the United States sought out different mints and varied coins as part of their hobbies, and 1977 quarters were no exception. Collectors from both large cities and smaller communities were interested in keeping mint sets, which were available from the U.S. Mint as well as through coin dealers. The 1977 Liberty Quarter Dollar is part of the Washington Quarter series, which is known for its iconic design of George Washington on the obverse and a bald eagle on the reverse. Although it does not stand out as particularly rare or historically significant beyond its regular minting, it provides valuable insight into the economic and political context of the late 1970s. From a geographical perspective, the quarter was a crucial part of everyday life across the U.S. at the time, as it was used for regular transactions and was widely distributed throughout the country. As part of the broader history of U.S. coinage, the 1977 quarter is an enduring symbol of American currency during a time of economic change.